What's up, guys, and welcome back to the infamous project here in a fresh 2022. Today's topic is going to be, why am I over black interiors? This is my first video of the year, so you guys are pretty much up to date with everything. And if you're not, be sure to go back and check out some of the previous seasons because, well, there's a boatload of content available for you guys to watch. Everything from custom builds to put back to stocks to wiring, electrical, fuel, motor swaps, all that other good stuff. And even in the past, I've done quite a bit of not only trim restoration, but I've done a lot of interior stuff. And today, I was kind of getting immersed into a little re-dyeing of black situation. And it just kind of came to me. And I said it the other week to Matt from Gearhead 704. I was telling him, you know what? I'm kind of over the black interiors. Here we are with a bunch of products because I'm getting ready to actually dye this interior black and do some touch-ups to get the rest of it that somebody else had done. And that is part of the reason why I wanted to do this video, is it really worth going through the headaches of getting yourself a black interior? Like, I get it. It was what everybody wanted back in the day. You only got it from 90 to 93 unless you were kind of in the earlier years of 4i cars. So it was kind of like the luxury. It always looked clean, black is sexy, all of those good things. But is it really worth it? I've been dyeing and making black interiors ever since I was probably 16 years old. I was using a product called Marhide for interior plastics, vinyl, leather, and Marhide actually still exists today. It's the product that I use typically on trim. And Marhide and SEM, in reality, I believe it's the same manufacturer. I could be wrong on that, but in terms of overall quality and output, it is probably the leader in the market. Your other option back in the day, believe it or not, you could actually go to the Ford dealer and you could buy the interior paint. Because if you guys aren't aware, these interiors were painted to begin with. This, my friend, is a tape line from factory of where the black went on top of the gray. Same thing down along here. So for all of you guys that have been hating on a dyed interior, being like, oh, it's gonna chip, it's gonna scratch, it's gonna do all these things. Well, even your factory interior could do that. And if done properly, the reality is you can have a really nice looking, long lasting interior in any color of your choice. So going back into this topic, I've done a lot of black interiors. I've always wanted black interiors, but recently that's kind of changed for me. And you guys would have saw this last season. I've done a lot of DIY and how-tos on how to prep and dye your interior properly. You know what? I even dyed the interior in my Lightning way back in the day. So I'm very used to it. I'm used to the process. I can do it fairly quickly, but for anybody else that's out there and you're thinking, oh, I just want a black interior, well, think again. And there's a couple reasons why I'm going to say this. Number one, if your interior is mint and there's no cracks, there's no scratches, and it's just an overall really good condition, do you really want to ruin that original interior? Because the reality is the grays really don't look that bad. I personally love the blue interior, and that's the reason why I picked up this 93 notch. Look at that blue interior, guys. People now are even starting to like red interiors. That old porno red, people actually don't mind them. And the reality is, so many people either tore out their reds and their grays and their blues. There was even tan out there. And so many of those interiors got destroyed. They got tossed, they got burnt, they got painted or dyed. What ends up happening is that a lot of those mint original interiors are really hard to get this day and age. So with a lot of people trying to keep things original, go back to OE and trying to undo modifications that have been done, well, if you have a really clean interior in any other color other than black, well, don't get me wrong, a black interior is still going to be worth a lot of money, but you might not want to just dismiss your blue, your red, your gray, your tan, or whatever it is, because there's chances are somebody is looking to restore a Fox, or they're going to be down the road. I can assure you that that whole, oh yeah, take this, all this red interior for $100. If you can find that now, kind of good luck. So there's a couple of reasons, guys, on why maybe not to go with black and consider your OG color. You can refresh your OG color like I did with the Dutch number 5 car. Or if you really, really want to go ahead with black, or maybe you want to go with a custom color, that's fine too. And this isn't about not doing black or not doing custom, because, well, the Infamous project's all about doing custom stuff. All right, so you made the decision, you're gonna go ahead and dye your interior. Or maybe you're just gonna refreshen it, which is completely fine. The one thing that I'm going to stress in this video is please do it properly. Remove everything, take it all out of the car, prep it, and do it right the first time. So that way you aren't coming back and trying to fix those scratches or maybe paint peel or anything else that happened as a result of poor prep. So you can see the whole dash skin is out of the car. I didn't take the whole frame and the wiring out. I just took the skin and pulled that out. I'm also going to be pulling out all of the vents. I'm going to be pulling off the dash pad. You can see I pulled the emblem off. So this isn't about masking around everything, trying to paint the vents while they're installed, because you're going to be in for a headache and a challenge, and you're not going to get full coverage. And somebody who's really OCD, like myself, is going to criticize that. The other thing that you want to do is, once you're done and you got all these vents painted and everything else, you want to go over with a white paint pen and put your white notches back, so that way it looks factory and people aren't like, oh, he just painted over everything. So I've already actually taken some super clean, and this is a really nice degreaser. I sprayed everything down, wiped it with a purple Scotch pad. What that does is a Scotch pad actually gets into the texture of all of the plastic and the vinyl, cleans out that grease, and it also very lightly scuffs everything up, so we have a good surface for the paint to stick to. The next step, Dawn. Can't go wrong with Dawn. It's good for penguins in oil, as the commercials say. It's also good to clean up your interior stuff. Why not get this all cleaned up instead of all this dirt and everything getting reinstalled back in your car? So we're going to be cleaning all of that up. Once we've washed everything down with the Dawn and the soap and water, I'm going to rinse it all off. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to do a final wipe down, something like brake clean or a wash and wipe that you would use prior to paint. That's going to make sure that any of your greasy fingerprints, anything else, are off the interior. And then I'm going to go through the painting process. Go ahead, probably do about 3 coats, crosshatch pattern, and make sure that everything is all uniform. Another important thing when you're using this stuff, now you can actually buy this and run it through a gun. The gun can be challenging. If you really want to go that route, then I would suggest that you run it through a mini gun, and that'll allow you to kind of get into some grooves and nooks and crannies a little bit better. Some guys can be like, oh, do you need adhesion promoter? If you do all the steps that I just said, I do not personally use adhesion promoter. I'm a firm believer that all of these steps in the prep is enough as a good foundation to put your paint, your dye, whatever you want to call it, down. On this can, it's going to give you, for vinyl and for plastic, it's going to recommend that you use the SEM soap. Again, Dawn dish soap will do the trick. And then you have a universal surface cleaner for your vinyl if you want to go that route. And then you have plastic and leather prep and universal surface cleaner, which you can use as well. If you want to use all the SEM products, by all means go ahead, but it's sort of like getting special window tint solution. You can actually just use soapy water. But anyways, same thing, it's up to you guys. So last but not least, and probably the most important thing when you're spraying your product down, depending on 2 major factors. One being your distance and the way that you're spraying. Number 2 is the temperature. If you mix those 2 things up, or you add some variables to either one of those, your outcome is going to look different than the next guy's. So it's really important that, number 1, you spray this in what I like as room temperature conditions with normal humidity. You don't want to spray this stuff when it's super humid out or it's going to rain. You don't want to spray it in the cold. And you probably don't want to spray it in the super hot sun, and make sure you have a nice even pattern and distance away from the surface. Pretty much what the can is telling you to do. If you spray this stuff too closely, it's going to turn out and come out glossy, and you really aren't going to want that constant armor-all look, because, well, the factory didn't look that way either. So take that into account, guys, when you're spraying this stuff. And I'm sorry I'm kind of going through everything in a verbose way. I'm going to do a time lapse here. You guys will be able to see it for yourselves. And the other nice thing, the stuff dries really quick, but that doesn't mean you should be handling everything really quick. You can spray this stuff down within 5 minutes. You can touch it, you can move it around, you can do all those other things. Try not to touch it. Don't go ahead and just reinstall it. In fact, you should probably just let everything sit somewhere for 3 to 5 days. Let that paint fully cure. So there you go. That's my advice. If you're gonna go ahead and do some vinyl, plastic, dye, color changes, whatever you want to call it, you can check out some of my other videos that I've done where I've done custom colors or I've restored factory original colors, as close as you can get them with the products that are out there these days. But there you have it. So gonna go ahead now, time to wash, time to prep, time to spray. And well, despite all the DIY stuff, you guys let me know your thoughts. What do you guys think about a black interior? Is it worth the hype? Should we be trying to save the blues, the reds, the tans, the grays? Let me know what you think. All right, guys, you want to get these vents out? Just grab the fins between your fingers and pull. In order to get the assemblies out, or the bezel, whatever you want to call it, you need to pull the vents out first. Shout out to my man Neo Mustangs. He gave me this shirt up at Foxtoberfest, and who doesn't like a free t-shirt, right? So you can see there's these little fins in here. You can kind of get a screwdriver in there. All right, guys, I got the vent out, and well, shit happens even to the best of us. You know, trying to do stuff right and take everything out, but the brittleness of these interiors, I notice this more on cars from the south where it's been really hot and they haven't gone through the temperature changes. The plastic just wants to snap and break. That really goes for wiring connectors and everything else. But hey, at least we got 7 out of the 8 clips left, and we have a good opportunity to get this all cleaned up and ready for paint. Got everything pretty much washed up here. It's rinsed off. It's pretty much dried off, and we do have a really nice day today in terms of being able to let Mother Nature, i.e. the sun, do its job and make sure that everything is nice, clean, and dry. Finished washing down all of these parts on this side, and all of these guys were actually already dyed black, and I just wanted to go through and get them ready to get what you would call, I guess, a revised top coat onto them. There was just a couple little spots that I wasn't happy with. They were done previously by somebody else. Thankfully, the prep work that was done prior seemed to be pretty good, and everything was nice and clean underneath, so somebody took their time. I think they might have just rushed the top coat and the final product a little bit, but that's okay because we didn't have peeling chunks or anything like that that we need to worry about. There's honestly nothing worse than dealing with an interior that had been dyed by somebody and the prep was poor, or they didn't use the right types of paints, and it starts peeling off and you're finding yourself just trying to have to sand everything off, which is an absolute nightmare. They've pretty much ruined the panels in that case because, man, sanding it off sucks, and you can't use any strippers because the strippers will probably eat all of the plastic. So if you guys have run into that where you have the panels are sticky, where the paint is like eating the plastic and is never cured, or it's trapped a moisture barrier in between the paint and the product, I'm sorry guys, that's going to be difficult. I'd be finding some other panels and redoing them. Some of you guys will probably know what I'm talking about. You see this guy here, for instance, too. I took this off the actual glove box assembly, so that way we can get a really nice finish and don't have to worry about masking off the actual glove box. So I'm gonna go ahead now and just kind of let this stuff all dry up. And at that point, it's all about setting up and getting ourselves a nice spot, not too windy, but maybe with some sun, and get laying down some coats of paint. Alright guys, so here's 2 coats of the SEM Lando Black onto this gray dashboard, and you can see I paint everything. So that way, if something comes off, somebody removes a vent, somebody pulls the glove box door, or whatever it might be, it looks black underneath. So I try and split up my spraying into kind of 2 areas. I'll try and do the stuff that behind the scenes, the stuff that you don't really see, stuff like where the climate controls are, behind the gauge cluster, behind the glove box, behind the dash pad, and then go on everything that you're gonna see and kind of flip back and forth when I'm doing my coats. Right now, I'm really just kind of letting these 2 coats that I've done set up pretty good. We do have some good sun. It is a little windier out today than I would like, but at the same time, I kind of use the wind to my advantage to try and kind of almost mist and get a nice coverage on. You can see this isn't looking glossy or extra shiny. It's looking like a real nice satin semi-gloss black finish like you would see from the factory. Doing the vents here. And the vents, to be honest guys, they suck. You have to move them one way, move them another way, fold the flap one way, and then fold the flap back the other way. And eventually, man, these cobwebs, not good for paint. Thankfully, this SEM dries quick. Finished product on the dash pad. Managed to squeeze out a couple other little areas here in terms of the vents, covers for the console, rear armrest delete, and the latch for the glove box. And you can see with those vents and even these guys, I make everything black. So if you remember, this was gray around and above the foam. Yes, I painted the foam because, well, it is just that, and actually it's in pretty good shape. This would actually be your opportunity. If your foam's not in good shape, you could rip that off and put some new stuff on there. But like I said, I like to do my black interior in a way that, you know, if you really looked, you're going to notice that it was dyed. The biggest giveaway would be the hardware. It is almost like a copper color. Well, that hardware is now all painted black, so that'd be your dead giveaway there. But at least everything else looks the part. Really happy with the way that it turned out. Like I said, it's not too glossy, it's not too dull, it's just kind of right in between. Again, it's so critical, the temperature, the distance, and the way that you're laying that paint on. It could take some trial and error, so maybe try a couple panels on things first that you don't care so much about versus something that somebody's going to be looking at as soon as they get into your car. White paint pen here, and just going over the markings on the vents like we'd see from factory. I talked about this at the start of the video, that people usually just paint their interiors and then they don't put the markings back. So it's kind of 2 coats of the white and things look new again. So that's going to wrap up our first video of 2022. Hopefully you guys found it informative, and thank you again for your support. For any of you guys who watch these things all the way to the end, sometimes I even get bored of listening to myself when I edit these things, but you know what? All your comments, your support, everything else definitely motivates me to keep on doing this.